Hello everyone, welcome to part 2 of the build video. So this one's going to be a little different. It will be a bit of a build and chill like the last one with some time-lapse footage, but I'll also cut in here and there and just do some voiceovers and explain a few bits and pieces as we go. But yeah, sit back and relax and let's get on with it. Okay, before you do anything, I would suggest making sure the holes are tapped. M3 is the hole of choice. Most modern motherboards come with M3 standoffs these days, so this is a lot easier to do from the behind and before anything's in the case and mounted to the case. So what you want to do is fit your standoffs and place your motherboard on top of the standoffs, and then once you've got your layout for your motherboard, you can find out which holes align and which holes don't. Then I've used a sort of long reach marker to reach through and mark the holes that aren't drilled. And if you want standoffs in those locations, just mark them, drill them and tap them as well. That way it's not so fiddly later on when you want to mount your motherboard. You may just find that you've picked up enough holes and you're happy with that, that's fine. But there's just so many motherboards and they all put random holes everywhere these days just because they can. So yeah, I'll do that before doing anything else with the assembly. Okay, the first thing you want to do is mount your AASD servo drivers. Now you can either mount them facing down, which would be upside down if you're looking from the behind, or like this. This is my preferred method because if you're reaching in from behind your rig, you can set them up easily and the display is facing the right way. Now, it is a little tight against the back wall, so feeding a bolt through and then holding the nut on the other side, unless you've got like a flexible hex bit, or maybe you can go one by one and use a screwdriver to hold the nut while you screw it in from the back. It's a little hard, so I've designed these little 3D printed nut captures, and basically they slide over the ends, each end of the servo driver, and then you press in an M4 nut, and that way you can just screw from the back, it picks up the nut and pulls them tight. Okay, once you've got your AASD servo drivers installed, the next thing we're going to install is the aluminium extrusion legs. So these are held in by 4 T-bolts each. So you've got 2 in the center and 2 on the outer part of the chassis for each leg. So just go through and pre-fit these T-bolts. Now, because the servo drivers have a slight dome head raised by about 1 or 2 mil, we put 1 or 2 washers on the back side of these, and that'll space the extrusion up enough to clear those bolts for the servo drivers. When installing the M12 bolts for the rubber feet, I wasn't sure if they would clear the universal joints on the actuators, so I have my bolts with the nuts on the underside. The problem with this is if you tighten the nut too much, you can actually pull the nut past the rubber foot. So I would recommend turning the bolts around and putting the nut on the metal side. So opposite to what I'm doing here. But if you do this, it's fine. Just don't tighten them too much because it will compress the rubber and then your bolts can creep through and touch the ground. Whereas when you do the other side, the extra thread will be poking up the top, so it's fine. Okay, the next thing we're going to do is install the motor, power and encoder cables. These are all cut to length, so you should have 4 at 60 centimeters and 2 at 120 centimeters. So your first 2 drivers will go to your rear left 2 actuators, and then your middle ones are the long 1.2 meter cables go to the front 2 actuators, and your 5th and 6th will go to your rear right actuators. Now the cables are labeled, so just match the letters with the lettering on the servo drivers, and then plug in the DB connector and screw it down. The earth location is on the heatsink, so there's 2 earth screws, so unscrew one and connect the earth to that. Alright, once your servo cables are fitted and tied out of the way, you can go ahead and install your motherboard if you're going to put your motherboard in here. Otherwise, don't worry about that. But if you do put your motherboard in here, I have designed a bracket for your GPU because your GPU isn't supported. So there's a couple of ways to do it, but I've made this 3D printed bracket which picks up the the graphics card, and it's height adjustable, and you can adjust the width of it depending on how thick your card is, and this just stops it from wobbling around and keeps it secure. Okay, next we want to wire up the servo drivers. So there's a couple of ways you can do this. You can wire up an individual plug for each servo driver and plug them into a power board, or create a daisy chain like I've done and wire them up that way. That way you only have one plug powering all the servo drivers. Now, this is a little bit more involved because you have to make your own wiring loom, but I think it's neater, and the maximum power these will output is about 1000 watts at any given time. So that's, more than enough in this cable to handle that. Now, depending on your country, you might have to get a licensed electrician to do this or sign off on it. So just be mindful that it might not be legal for you to do this if you're not a licensed electrician in your country. Now, L1 is active or hot, L2 is neutral, and earth is on the heatsink again, next to the other earth screw. It's also recommended to create an earth lead and earth the chassis from one of your servo drivers. That way your chassis is earthed. Next, we're going to power up the servo drivers and we're going to set the parameters. Now, we do ask our supplier to pre-configure these for Thanos, but you're going to have to double check them anyway, because if anything's wrong, your actuators will not do what they're supposed to, and you can cause damage to your rig. So we'd recommend just checking these anyway. Plus, different controllers have different settings. So the VNM controller has totally different settings that they recommend, and the motion for sim is basically the same as Thanos, but there's one setting that's different. So I would look at the manufacturer's instructions for whichever motion controller you're going to use and use those settings. But it's pretty straightforward. You hit the mode button to bring up the PN, then you can go up and down on the arrows. The set button on the right shuffles along the numbers. Hold down the set button to go into that menu, input your new figure. Now once you've input the new figure, then you hold the set button to save that figure.
Let your heart rest. And in the midnight, when the world cries, when the girls rise on the whole protocol. And in the midnight, when the world cries, when the girls rise on the whole protocol. And I keep going.
Now it's time to connect your DB25 cables and get them secured. And I like to label everything. So what I'll do, I've got a little label maker. I label the servo drivers numbered 1 to 6, and I label my DB25 cables at both ends. And I also label the actuators that they go to the same number. That way it just causes less headaches in the future. Now my number scheme here is something I've used for 8 years because FlyPT Mover wouldn't allow you to adjust your actuator numbering. So I've kind of just stuck with that for now. But these days with DR Sim Manager, you can actually just select which actuator is which in the software and it automatically adjusts for you. So you can label them however you like, as long as it's set up right in the software later on.
Ooh.
Okay, so here we go. I didn't film the building of this because I was kind of making it up as I go. And everyone's going to have a different motherboard, processor, power supply combo, and different, hard drive setup and motion controller and all that. So I'll show you what I've done, and I'll just run you through it all. So I've got all the AASD drivers lined up here. The daisy chained as you saw earlier with the power, and then the short supplied DB25 cables come off them, and you just try to make that as neat as possible. With the power supply, because I've got these long, I don't know if you can see it, I got long bolts on the servo drivers down here. So I had to space this up just to clear them a little bit. But while I was at it, I made it hollow so I could feed all the cables through. So for a bit of cable management. So it's a bit hard to see, and that's double-sided taped down. That's pretty. It's not going anywhere. Thanos controller, because I've got the remote one with the remote faceplate. It's got DB25 cable here, otherwise I probably would have stuck that face down, but I've kind of got my 7th actuator here. I'm waiting for a 90-degree bracket adapter for my belt tensioner, and I might just change the camera to like 0.4 or something, so there we go, f4. Now that's just got a little mount that's double-sided taped down as well. It's a bit hard to see because everything's so tight in here, but I'll share all these files in case anyone wants to copy. I've got a couple SSDs, double-sided tape there. I've got an 8-port power board there. Let's get the camera to adjust its ISO. Now I've got all the fans blowing out, and I've got a Corsair water all-in-one cooler, and they're also blowing out. So the idea is to draw air through the vents over the servo drivers to keep them cool, over the processor and whatnot, and out. So we'll see how that goes. I might do some thermal tests and stuff, and just, otherwise I could probably always swap the fans and have one coming in, one coming out, but then you're probably gonna, I've never had any issues with these overheating anyway. They sit in the cabinet, they never had fans before, so but they never also had a 5080 CPU and all, and power supply heating it up as well, so that could make a bit of a difference. What else have I got? So the motherboard, as you would have already seen by now, you've just kind of, every sort of ATX board has screws in slightly different places, and you can either just skip those ones or do what I did and mark them and drill and tap a couple extra holes. And I've got this little GPU bracket. So because I've got no case, let's see if I can, so it's height adjustable for here, these 2 screws. It's double-sided tape to the floor, so basically and it's also got a little L groove there, so that's gonna, don't know if you can see it, and it rubs hard up against the card, so you press that hard against the card, lock the 2 screws in, and then slide that down, or get it, straight, slide that down and stick it to the floor, tighten them up, and then that's rock solid, because it does tend to droop a bit to one side, and you don't want to put pressure on your PCI Express slots, so that worked out pretty well. I'll probably have to make a longer version for like the triple slot 5090s and stuff like that, and 4090s. That'll take 2 seconds to make, so I can share all those files, and it's pretty neat. Install all this, the triple fan on the other side, and you've got the holes all cut out and the vents as well. At the front we've got an extra hole up here, and this is where like your power cable and stuff will come out. I've got my Wi-Fi antenna there. I'll mount that somewhere when I've got the lid on. And yeah, what else is there? That's pretty much it for now. So yeah, just play around with what you got. Cable management, it's a bit of fun. You just got to sort of tackle one piece at a time. I didn't stick anything down until I was happy with the location, so I had this all just sitting here. And once I got all the cooler in and I was happy with the clearance and I had all the cables running through it, then yeah, I lifted it up, pulled the tape off and stuck it down. And this here, we'll see how that goes with the weight of these, but I think it should be alright. Like this shouldn't get any real vibrations or movement, so I don't think we're going to have any issues with that sort of stuff. So I think double-sided tape should be pretty good for a lot of stuff in here, to be honest. But time will tell. And yeah, well, it's a pretty nice, neat setup, all in one. That's it, and literally all I've got is the power cable coming out here. I'll have the 3 monitors running in as well. I'll have another power cable coming from here that will go up to my rig, which will power another power board that will run my monitor power and the USB hub power and all that sort of stuff. So it'll pretty much be one power here, one more coming out with 3 DB display ports, whatever you want to call them. So yeah, it's pretty minimalist, and yeah, all your USB, I'll probably have a USB hub. I'll probably mount that up on this top bit. I don't want to keep turning the camera upside down. So like I've mounted up here, I'll mount a little USB hub along here, and that can power some things, but most of it will be the USB hub on my triple monitors, which will power pedals, peripherals, all that sort of stuff. And then there'll just be one USB coming in. Now I've got a new motherboard. This is it's a bit hard to see, but it's got 14 3.2 USBs on it, so it should be enough juice on this. It's a Dark Horse X570 Dark Hero or something. Anyway, whatever. So yeah, anyway, I'm going to get it down. I'm going to get the wife to give me a hand, drop it down on the ground, and I'm going to start mounting the actuators and lay the top frame on top. I don't want to put the top on yet, but you want to do all this before you start mounting the top half of the simulator, because once the top bit's on here, it's going to be real hard to get in here and play around. So yeah, obviously I'm going to have to plug some USBs and stuff in later, but yep, that's it. Hi, Future Chris here. So this part is not very necessary because these are going to be assembled from factory before coming out, but it's just good to know how they are assembled in case you need to service them in the future. Okay, so this is the top bearing block. Alright, so what you want to do is make sure you got bearings in this side, bearings in this side. Alright, and then we want to put the spacers in like so, and then we want to get your M8 with a washer. The washer goes on the other side. So you get the washer. Okay, don't worry about that, we can put that in later, but we just want to like nip it up a little bit. You want that to be able to move, but not too, that's probably a little tight, but just a little bit. I think that's pretty good. It's not too much friction, but there's a little bit of friction, but not too much. And then what we want to do is you put your grub screw in, and we lock that in place. Okay. Now, this is going to fall out all the time, but you can just put that in the next step. All right. So next bit, we want to.
Yep.
Same deal. All right, now we can throw your spacers back in, like so. What we want to do is put the hoop this way. You can see the rounded edge. So it's just going to go in here, right? So what we want to do is get a couple bolts in here just to hold it. Like so. And then once that's in, we want to clamp it. So what I've got here is a nice clamp, because this plastic bit it's bowed a little bit just from manufacturing. That's just the type of plastic it is, the dowel ring. But so what we want to do is we want to get this nice and tight. Now this plate here has threaded holes on this side, and these aren't threaded. So what we're going to do is basically line these holes up. So we want to get that nice and tight, and then we'll get some of our bolts. And now these might need a little encouragement with a impact driver. Like so. And as you get one or two in, it will it'll pull that plastic nice and straight. Like so. And then these ones should go in, but they would need a little bit of encouragement too, probably. So. Beautiful. We'll throw a couple nuts on. And we can undo this clamp now because everything's in. Beautiful. Now we just tighten these nuts up, but I'll give you a little look. Wait, stuck. So that's how it will look. We'll just tighten these up. We can probably tighten these a little bit more as well. And these will swivel nice, they're locked. and then they're ready for the actuators. Position your actuators. We get a couple bolts started. Line them up. Throw a washer on there if you want. I will, because I just paid lots of money for them, so. And then get your nut started. What you should do, you should just go corners, and that way once you get the corners done, I'll do that in a sec. Because once you got the corners done, then you can sort of get it out of the way and just do the others. Yeah, put that back on top, rest that against the wall, and finish it off. Pretty straightforward, really. There you go. Now we're gonna probably spread these ones. I think and do this. Maybe we'll do that. spread that. We're going to throw that through the middle, put some towel down here, and then we're going to try to screw these ball screws onto the end. Alright. So what we've got to do now, we've got these studs, and the studs are going to go in the end. So what you want to do, maybe throw like a double nut on it. And we're going to screw them bad boys all the way in. It should stop. And probably just go like so. And then that's going to be where the ball screw goes onto. Alright. So we're going to go through. You might get away with just screwing it in by hand, but you see little tight spots like that. So you probably want to just nip it up. Yeah, just help drive through those little tight spots. Get it all the way home. Top. Nip it down a little bit. Boop. And then you can back it off. Oh, right. Might need a spanner. And back it off. Now we do that with the other 4 actuators. Now's a good time to ask your lovely wife to give you a hand to lift the top frame on. I didn't want to bore you with our constant bickering while this is going on. Actually, I just forgot to turn my microphone on, so there is no audio. But it's a little awkward, but not too bad, as you can see. Before doing this, I would put something down on top of the PC case. I used a motorbike jack in the end, which gave me about 400mm of extra height. But you can use a box or a bunch of pillows or something, anything to get the top platform up a little higher. So when you're connecting the actuators, you have the height you'll see in the next part. Now before we mount the actuators, you just want to go around and check your coupler, make sure they're tight. So you've got a bolt on the bottom and a bolt on the top. So you can rotate these freely by hand, tighten the bottom, rotate it, line the top one up, tighten that. Just check that all, because once the weight of the rig is on top of these actuators, you can't move these by hand anymore, and it's a bit tricky to get to them. Okay, so I had to just raise it up a little bit higher on my motorbike jack, and that way what I can do is you can wind these up a little bit, wind them out a bit, and then they'll free pull. So we'll pull them out like so, then we'll line them up with our universal joint, and we're gonna basically, there it is, screw it in. There we go. And once it takes, it's gonna screw all the way nicely.
Alright, now I started this one before. Yes. And then we're gonna have to get these ones as well. That's it. There you are. Nice. Wind it out a little bit. And then grab it and pull. Now if you just take a little bit of weight of the rig so it's sitting on the rod and then get it started. Beautiful. The last two. It's easy, that one. Because once you get it started, it actually just pulls the actuator up. So it's nice. Super easy. And that's it. It's on. Now the trickiest bit now is getting that jack from underneath.
Strange weather. Bring your white rabbit wings and your feathers just to make you feel better. Wear your heart on your tether. Glued together. Tied to the side.
Isn't it? All right.
And it's time. Yeah.
I'll see if I can do it myself now that it's all. That's get that down. Yeah, just don't want it to lean that way too much because it will lean over on itself. Then now I can pull it back. Look at that. Boom. That.
Okay, once you've got your actuators mounted to your top frame, go around and lock the grub screw on the bottom part of the universal joint. Maybe check the top grub screws as well. And this is also a good time to go around your entire rig and check every nut and bolt for tightness, especially in the top of the actuators, as they may have loosened during transit and you don't want anything coming loose. Also go over your frame with a 14mm, and check all those bolts as well. Now, when mounting your seat, you'll pick the rail up on here on both sides, and then you can just test fit it, because it's going to mount to the extrusion up the front here as well. So measure the distance, and you can loosen these top and bottom bolts here and slide this forward and back to suit the length of your seat. So once you've got the seat all done, then you can tighten those back up. And as for the pedals, you can do the same thing. So you can adjust this forward and back to mount your pedals straight to the extrusion. If you wanted to, you could actually get rid of this plate and just mount your pedals straight to the extrusion and then not have the pedal plate, but then you might not have a footrest. That's the only issue. So it's pretty adaptable, and it should work with any pedal plate out there. That is sexy.